Okay, so in this video we're going to be discussing about introduction to vector data. Now for the vector data, first of all, we can see that we have done our first part. Now we are moving towards the second part, which is working with the vector data in ArcGIS. So let's start our first video, which is introduction to vector data. Now vector data means representing our information in the ArcGIS or anything in the form of points or lines or polygons. Now these can represent different sort of information for ourselves. Like for example, if you say the point can be located using the coordinates XY, and they represent information like a location or a city name or any name of a place on your map. They can be represented in using different symbols like triangle, square, circle, etc. Right, so that's one example of a vector data. The second one is line. Line can represent information like streams or rivers or roads or routes or lanes, etc. Right, so these are lines. That's another example. The third one is the polygon. Polygons can represent information like area to you, right, in ArcGIS. So these are three different examples of vector data, and these can be worked out in ArcGIS. Now what's so special about vector data? If you see the difference between vector and raster data is something that we're going to be discussing in the third part of our tutorials. This is the second part. Here we are discussing just vector data. The third part is solely dedicated to raster data, as you can see it here, right, the third part. So after we finish this, then we'll move towards the raster data. But just for this video, I'm going to give you a little information of the raster data for comparison purpose. Now first of all, let's see vector data here. You can see here the points in a map represent names of different places. Then the lines locating different routes or streets or anything, right? And the polygons representing different areas of our concern. So this is example of a raster vector data. Now you can see here, there's one thing to notice, that these areas or these points are simply shapes and colors. They're not representing something in too much detail. There are no shades, or there are no realistic you can say realistic information in this. They're just shapes or colors that are representing information. So that's what is in the vector data. They are just shapes, and that's why you can zoom into these this data without losing the quality of this image, because they are just colors, right? So you can zoom into them. Now raster data is actually representing the realistic image or realistic information in the software, in the ArcGIS. And with this image, there is a thing that when you zoom into them, you can see clearly that they get a little blurry, and in that blurry form you can see different shapes here, like square shapes, which are actually called the pixels. So these pixels actually combine together and give you this sort of an image, which is having all the details mentioned there. So that's the quality of raster, that it represents the real image to you with its all attributes and their different sort of realistic things there visible in the image. Now you can see that it clearly depends on the number of pixels, that how good zoom you can do or how good resolution you are having for the image. If you increase the number of pixels, they will get smaller and you will be able to zoom more into that. And also there will be a disadvantage that the file size will increase, but that's maybe you can tolerate that, right? You can have some space with yourself, but just understanding the difference between them. So you can see, if you take this shape and you're not concerned with the information inside this image, you just need the area, then you can convert that into a vector from raster, and that vector will look like simply a color which can be incorporated here. So this is the difference between vector and raster data. Vector data means that you're having different points, lines, or colors representing your information, and raster data means that different cells or grids or pixels showing you the different informations that you are concerned with. So I hope you understood that. In the next lecture, we'll talk about vector data in ArcGIS. Thank you very much.